Okay, let's see. Are we live yet? Waiting to see. There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. It is Friday, April 7th at 4 p.m., at least here in the central time zone of the United States. And we're standing here in Fallout 76, specifically right here next to the New River Gorge Bridge. This is one of the sites that is shared in common between Appalachia in Fallout 76 and Appalachia in real life, specifically West Virginia, because that's where most of Fallout 76 takes place. Now that down there is Flatwoods, obviously another site that's shared in common. The purpose of this video is really to cover the different sites, or not really the different sites, but the sites that are held in common, because that's what the next lore video is about. It's about the sites that can be found both in-game and in the real world, and how jumbled the map of Appalachia really is, because when it comes right down to it, this is very different from real-world Appalachia. Now, that's kind of weird when you can compare it to like Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4, where you have basically the same layout of the world. Everything's just compact. Everything's shrunk down. Cities are smaller. The distances between the towns are smaller. But generally speaking, Concord is where Concord is. Lexington is where Lexington is. Quincy is where Quincy is, you know. And in Fallout 3, Bethesda is where Bethesda is. It's just Fallout 76 does a lot of very different stuff. Now, I would say that the town, if we're going to basically count this entire thing as basically being West Virginia, which it's not, because we know for a fact, for example, that the Robco Research Center is within Virginia, not within West Virginia, because of the address you can find on computers there. But if we count the rest of this as effectively being Virginia, then we can say that Charleston is pretty close to where real Charleston is, in that it's kind of in the south central part of the state. Now down here in the ash heap, this would be southern West Virginia, and that is the place where you will find Beckley, and where you're going to find Welch, and where you're going to find Lewisburg, although Lewisburg is a little bit more east. Along with that, in real life, Beckley and Welch are kind of swapped in position. But along with that, Welch is, well, so if Beckley was Welch, then Beckley would be up here, if you're understanding what I'm saying here. And the better way to say that is Beckley is northeast of Welch. Welch is southwest of Beckley. Now, along with that, there is also Bromwell in the game, although it's not really called Bromwell. The only way you would know that it's Bromwell... Hey, Kingdom of Inland, welcome to the stream. The only way you'd know this is Bromwell is from, I think, there's like a single terminal entry found in the Charleston Capitol building where they talk about going down and seeing the mining tycoons, the mining magnates down here in Bromwell, which is where you have the Garahan estate, the Hornwright estate, and the unfinished mansion. My guess is this unfinished mansion was originally intended for Mr. Kilson, the head of the AMS, the Atomic Mining Services, and it was destroyed by rioters before it was actually completed. Now, Bromwell is an interesting place. Again, it also has some cut content from what I've seen on the wiki, in that there was supposed to be more of a town there than there is. Why don't we go ahead and head to Garahan Mining, and we can take a look at Bromwell. Bromwell is the southernmost city in the state of West Virginia that is covered in Fallout 76. It's not really a city either. It's a town. Interestingly enough, it is very well represented in having the mega mansions, because back in the late 19th to early 20th century, Bromwell, West Virginia, had more millionaires than any other town in the entire United States. And that's because of the mining that was going on in West Virginia at the time, how lucrative it was. People, built their homes up here in the mountains. Why don't we go ahead and head down towards where Bromwell is. Actually, I'm going the wrong way. Wait, am I? No, I'm going right. I'm going south. I just got a little turned around there for a minute. Wait, is it south? I feel like it's up the road this way. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's east. There is a little bit of Bromwell, but there is a cut sign that was supposed to say Bromwell. I don't really know why they cut this content out. It feels like a lot of this stuff down here was kind of left unfinished. My hope is they're going to pick it up at some point in the future. There has been a little bit additional down here, specifically with Penelope Hornwright being found at the Hornwright Industrial Place. Or not Hornwright Industrial, but the Hornwright Mansion here. If you have any UNSC rifle, what would you go with? 37 from Halo Reach. Fun fact, the company behind him. I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've played Halo. You know, the funny thing is that despite the fact that the battle rifle is the better of between the battle rifle and the assault rifle is the better gun, when Halo 2 first came out, I was just so upset that I couldn't just fire endlessly with the assault rifle, no matter how inaccurate that is. Got a scavenger here wearing a police cap and some leather armor. This is just part of Bromwell here. Why don't we keep on going this way? But again, what I was saying before, they cut a bunch of content down here. There was supposed to be a sign that was talking about this place being Bromwell. Along with that, like, there are members of the Garahan family that were cut out of the game. I can't remember the name of them. The eldest son of the Garahan family. Did something attack me? What the hell? Oh, okay. The eldest son of the Garahan family in the cut content ordered a minigun, and he took it and he went up and battled the rioters up here on top of Mount Blair. It's like, this is stuff that it would have been awesome if they'd left it in the game, but they cut it out for some reason. I think the Brotherhood of Steel, depending on you're asking what they would think of cyborgs. I think it depends on how much modification there is, because they're not on board with synths, but then again, synths were not ever born humans. I think that's their main problem with them, is that they're, you know, technologically created, but I don't know that they would have that big a problem with some cybernetic modification. Hey, Night Spearhead. Okay, well, hope you don't have too rough a day at work. Things are going well there. Yeah, this is Bromwell, though. All these houses down here, they're completely, there's no mention of what this is down here on the map, but this is Bromwell down here. Okay, so again, this was once the town with the most millionaires per capita in the country. Eventually that was ended, and in the early 20th century, the downtown of Bromwell burned down. The reason I know this stuff is because the city of Bromwell, and I don't even know if it was the city itself, and again, not really a city, a town, because it's so small, but it was such a, like, there's like a Web 1.0 website that was still running as of a couple years ago when I was first researching Bromwell for a video on the mining magnates. And it was amazing because, like, I hadn't seen this kind of stuff since the 90s. It may still be up, I don't know, but it was really entertaining to see. Anyway, though, again, that covers Bromwell, so why don't we go ahead and look at Welch. There's the Colonel Kelly Monument. Not sure what I took that shot for. Oh, probably for the dailies for whatever that robot is that hangs out at the Overseer's house in Sutton. Back when they didn't have the option to not save the photos you were taking. Oh, yeah. And you work at a restaurant, right? So I think Easter weekend's got to be pretty crazy. I think you work at a restaurant. I'm sorry if I'm misremembering that. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, this is Welch with Ultramites out here. I'm going to have to cover this stuff again when I recover Welch. I haven't really been over here that much lately. I've really been covering other sites. But yeah, so this is Welch, which is, of course, again, another real town in West Virginia. It is also a town that has been, in real life, decimated by the loss of mining jobs. There are some pictures you can find of Welch from the 1940s where the town, like, obviously the town never was the size of something like New York City, but you look at, like, the downtown streets of Welch back in the 40s, and it looks like New York City. Like, that's how much activity was going on out here. I've read some stuff about the southern Appalachian coal fields, and we're talking not just West Virginia, but over in Virginia itself as well, where the mines produced such high-quality coal that the ships that were using it, that were burning it in their furnaces, did not produce black smoke. Like, that's how high quality the coal was. Now, that may not be true. It's just something I've read, but if that is true, I mean, because the truth of the matter is, if you burn something that is high quality enough, like a high quality enough fuel, and you burn it right, then you reduce the pollutants basically down to nothing. And so that's, again, what I've heard about the quality of the coal that was found in southern West Virginia and in Virginia. A lot of that stuff got used up during the Second World War and in the creation of the country, and is now gone. But and again, Welch was once a much larger city than it is now. Yeah, they're one of the towns that really has been decimated by automation and both in game and in the real world. And not even so much automation in the real world, but more so the improvement in mining technology. So you need far fewer people to get the same amount of coal out of the ground. And of course, the coal industry itself has been declining within the United States over the past, I don't know, 20 years. So just an unfortunate circumstance to the people in Welch, because the area is beautiful. It's got this really rich history of basically the fight between labor and mining bosses and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy. There's a courthouse in Welch where a member of the Hatfield family, who was a sheriff in another town, who was involved in a gunfight with some of the what are they called? Phelps detectives. I know I'm missing part of that name. But there was a, in the same way that there are Pinkertons, if you know what Pinkertons are, basically before there was the FBI, there was no way to do jurisdiction between states in terms of hunting down criminals and stuff like that. Because again, there's no federal force. It's state by state. So if someone flees across state lines, the state has no jurisdiction within the other states. It was a real problem. So they would hire people like the Pinkertons, and these private detectives would then go across state lines, arrest these people, and bring them back. Well, the mining bosses hired a bunch of Pinkertons to go in and clear out some striking miners. One of the members of the Hatfield family, of the famous Hatfield and McCoy family, fought back against them. There was a gunfight in the street, and a bunch of these Felts, and again, I'm missing part of it. I'm missing the first half of that name. It's like, anyway, a bunch of them died in the streets. Well, including one of the one or two of the brothers who founded the company. So they basically put out a hit on this sheriff, who then fled to Welch and was gunned down on the steps of the courthouse in Welch. Just like crazy stories. And speaking of labor disputes, we're right here at the base of Mount Blair, a real site in the real world. Of course, in the real world, it's called Blair Mountain, not Mount Blair, but there was a massive battle here in 1921, I'm thinking. I could be wrong about that. I think it's August 25th through September 2nd, 1921, where basically the miners fought an all-out battle against a bunch of sheriff's deputies and mining bosses and their lackeys that they hired. There was even planes dropping bombs on the striking miners, and things finally ended when the federal government stepped in and basically sent in the Air Force to run coverage over the area. It was basically a disaster for the mining folks out there, or for the miners, I mean, and for labor in general. But this was just one of a series of battles between labor and management. Okay, so speaking of more of that stuff, let's go down to Beckley. Beckley, another real city in West Virginia, larger than Welch significantly in the modern age. It's also closer to Lewisburg than it is to Welch, or closer to Lewisburg than Welch is to Lewisburg. We'll get to that in a minute, though. And I'm not going to go over every city. I'm just going to basically try to mention the high points of this thing, because otherwise, if I were to go over every city, it'd be like, what's the point of watching the video I'm producing? So again, this is Beckley. This is a town that was basically destroyed by the automation riots, and not just automation riots, but anti-corporate riots in general that sprung up in response to AMS deciding to try to seize the town of Welch in the days before the bombs led to massive riots down here in the ash heap, to where, I mean, we're not even really talking riots anymore. We're talking almost a full-on revolution that was taking place down here, as you can see with these barricades set up across the streets, the robotic strike breakers that were brought in to shoot up the miners. Terrible situation here. You can see the National Guard was even brought in to try to fight them as well. They were sent in by the governor. And this is after days of the governor doing nothing, and actually ended up causing the mine bosses over at Hornwright to basically send him angry letters like, what are you doing? We pay you. We own you. What are you doing? Send the National Guard down there, take things back. Now, the streets down here are named after real streets that can be found in real world Beckley. I didn't look at that the first time I was surveying the city. At least I don't think I did. It's something that I've looked at in all of the cities I've covered since then. But the other interesting thing is that there is also the real world mining museum over here. Exhibition mine. Jeez, a lot of feral ghouls here. And this is one of the real world sites you can find in game. Okay. Now, there are entire cities and large cities, large by West Virginia standards, that are completely ignored in the state in Appalachia. For example, Camden Park right here is actually found in the city of Huntington, which is in the southwestern end of the state, and it's one of the larger towns. So it's just kind of weird that they completely ignored it. But that's definitely not the only one. Okay, so Charleston, I covered a little bit. Like Charleston is probably the closest in terms of its actual location in the world, although Helvetia isn't that far off as well. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at... Well, let's just go up to Flatwoods. Because Flatwoods and Sutton are another one of those situations where the two cities flipped locations. We've got that in Flatwoods and Sutton, Beckley and Welch, and Grafton and Clarksburg. These are all cities that are relatively close to each other, and they've been flipped positionally. Although, again, Welch is south, not north of... basically, let me try to mimic this. This is Beckley. This is Beckley, this is Welch, and in game it's Beckley and Welch. So something like... Anyway. I'm probably just confusing you. Hey Christian, good to see you. Glad you were able to come and catch the stream this time. Okay, so Flatwoods, one of the smaller towns in Appalachia, and West Virginia, I mean, but it is also home to the the Flatwoods monster sighting, and they actually do have like a little display that they've got out in their town square. Now, again, like I said before, they flipped the locations of Flatwoods and Sutton. So Sutton sits on a river, while Flatwoods does not, and Flatwoods sits on a rail line, while Sutton does not. So they really did just flip these two in location. I'm not entirely sure why they did that, but it doesn't really matter. The other thing to note is that if you consider this, why don't we just go over the waterways now, because this is one of the best ways to show just how jumbled the map of Appalachia really is. And I finally have actually gone through, I've looked at all the waterways, and I've decided what each one of them is. Now, this is just based on my guesses, based on what these waterways pass by. Like in this case, this river passes by Flatwoods, or if we basically just consider these to be flipped, Sutton. And along with that, it flows out of Morgantown. Now, along with that, it also flows by the Gauley Mine. So this creates a lot of weird situations. So the river that really flows by Sutton in real life is called Elk Creek, or no, it's the Elk River. Sorry, there's an Elk Creek as well, but it's the Elk River. And the Elk River actually flows from way out in eastern West Virginia all the way out through Sutton. There's actually a full lake, a man-made lake held up by a dam right next to Sutton. And then it flows on down to Charleston, actually. So if this river actually continued down to here, that would be pretty accurate. But the truth of the matter is that the river flows down from here to here and down from here to here. So we can say that this is like the Elk River because, again, it flows past what would be Sutton. We can also say it's the Gauley River because it goes past Gauley Mine. And we can also say that it's potentially the Monongahela River because it flows out of Morgantown. Now, real-world Morgantown sits on the Monongahela, but the Monongahela River flows north, not south. It also does not split and go into two separate rivers. Now, if we go with this being the Gauley Elk Monongah, then we can go with this one here being the Gauley Monongah. And I say the Gauley Monongah because it flows past Summersville into Summersville Lake and onto Charleston. That's the Gauley River. The Gauley River is the main river that supplies Summersville Lake. Now, I say it's also the Monongahela because, again, it's flowing out of Morgantown. Now, the river that flows through Charleston is the Kanawha River. And I probably am mispronouncing that. I think I've mispronounced that constantly. There's a whole bunch of things in West Virginia where the pronunciation is like one what's the right word? One sound off of what one phonetic off of what I'm properly pronouncing it as. So the Kanawha River flows out of Charleston and it flows up to Point Pleasant on the Ohio. Now, there is no river in Point Pleasant other than the Ohio in this game. But if we go along with the river coming out of Charleston being the Kanawha River, then we have two rivers that would potentially be the Kanawha River, and we have the Kanawha Nuka-Cola plant here on this river. Now, because the New River Gorge Bridge is right here, we can say that this is also the New River. Now, the problem with that is that the New River is one of the tributaries that forms the Kanawha River. So we're talking about a river that's actually upstream of Charleston that meets with the Gauley River to form the Kanawha River. Now, the other weird thing about this is that the real world Summersville Lake Dam is something like 73 miles upstream from real world Charleston. So if David Thorpe did blow up the Summersville Lake Dam, my guess is it would still flood the city and do some pretty bad damage, but not nearly as bad as with it being right above Charleston like this. Now, again, we just covered the New River, Kanawha River, and the Kanawha River. Why don't we go ahead and take a look up here? The river here is much less defined on the map, but it is still there. And this is the Tygart Valley River. And it flows into Grafton Lake, or what would in the real life be Tygart Lake. Now, Tygart Lake is above Grafton in real life. It's also to the south and east of it, though. No, okay, the dam is south of Grafton. And so we got the Tygart Dam and the Tygart Lake backed up behind it. Now, that's fed by the Tygart Valley River. That river flows north to meet the West Fork River to form the Monongahela River, which again flows through Morgantown to the north onto Pittsburgh, where it joins the Allegheny to form the Ohio River, which then comes back down this way past West Virginia. So, but along with that, we have through Clarksburg, we have the West Fork River here, both of them flowing. Well, this one really kind of just stops here. There's this weird kind of lake here. I'm not sure what this lake is supposed to be. The West Fork River does also have a man-made lake on it. It's Lake Stonewall Jackson, but it's significantly further south than Tygart Valley Lake is. Okay, so I think that covers all the waterways over here. And why don't we go ahead and take a look at these waterways over here. Now over here we have just one lake, and this is Mount Storm Lake in real life. This lake is unnamed in the game, but Thunder Mountain Power Plant, it has got to be a in-game representation of the real-world Mount Storm Power Plant, which is found on Mount Storm Lake, a man-made lake that is right next to the real-world Dolly Sods Wilderness. This is another site that is found both in-game and in real life. Now, the river that flows out of that dam, in this case the Crevasse Dam, is the Stony River, and the Stony River is one of the tributaries of the Potomac River. The Potomac River, of course, flowing all the way down through Washington, D.C. to join the Chesapeake Bay to the southeast. So this right here you could say is both the Stony River and the Potomac, because the Potomac flows right past Harper's Ferry. So this is the Stony Potomac River right here. All right. Now, the Harper's Ferry sits at the confluence of the Potomac. Let's go from your view, from the Potomac River and the Shenandoah River to then basically just have the Shenandoah join the Potomac and just keep right on flowing. Okay. Now, you could say then that this is the Shenandoah River, but it is really just a little nub of a river, and it's not really something that I would consider worthy of being called the Shenandoah. Now, the real world Shenandoah, sorry, one second, let me turn the fridge off. I got my remote control there. All right. So, the real world Shenandoah River, it starts fairly close to Harper's Ferry, but that's only because it is its roots are longer and they go further than the Shenandoah itself. The Shenandoah starts at Front Royal, Virginia, and flows northeast and meets the Potomac to then flow down towards Washington, D.C. The weird thing, though, is that basically the water that we got here all eventually flows into this river here, and this is Watauga. Now, real world Watauga is almost not a thing. If you really get into it, Watauga is a national park, or not a national park, sorry, it's a state park, and there's like a little unincorporated community, and both of these sit right on the Greenbrier River. So if we say that this then is the Greenbrier River, then we can also potentially say maybe this is the Greenbrier Shenandoah River, because again, it's also flowing north. That's the other weird thing, is the Potomac seems to have no outlet here. The Potomac should be flowing off down to the east and to the south to go down towards Washington, D.C., the capital wasteland. We don't have that. Instead, it all seems to just pool right here. But the weird thing about this, too, is that the Greenbrier River also flows south and west on the western side of the mountains, and that's part of what joins and makes the new river the size that it is. So the Greenbrier River is on the eastern side of the mountains when it should be on the western side of the mountains, and the White Spring Resort, which is in real life is called the Greenbrier Resort, is also something that sits very close to the Greenbrier River in Greenbrier County near the city of Lewisburg. So we should have the Greenbrier River flowing right down through here to join the New River to flow up towards Charleston, but it's not there in game. Again, the map of Appalachia is seriously jumbled compared to what it is in real life. Okay, let's go through just general sites you can find both in-game and in the real world. We'll start at the north here, where we have Prickett's Fort, a real-world location found near the city of Fairmont, which is southwest of Morgantown in real life. Okay, let's keep going. The Tyler County Fairgrounds is another real-world location. It's actually also not that far from the Ohio, but it's on a creek called Middle Fork Creek. I think it's Middle Fork. And it flows west into the Ohio River. Now, Deathclaw Island is not, I don't know if it's actually supposed to be based on a specific island, but there are islands in the Ohio that are part of a national park or state park. I think it's national because I think it's shared between Ohio and West Virginia, but I'll have to check on that. But regardless, there are a series of islands here that are a national park, and the Middle Fork Creek, Middle Island Creek. I'm messing up the name in my head. Anyway, it flows right past the Tyler County Fairgrounds and Speedway, or the Tyler County dirt track as it's called in game, and it flows into the Ohio right next to one of these islands. So I think that's probably also supposed to be a real world location, although we don't know specifically what island that is. Now right here, the Black Mountain Ordnance Works is the McClintock Wildlife Preservation Area or something like that. It's also was once known by the name the West Virginia Ordnance Works, and it was a massive ammunition supply depot during the Second World War. It got shut down after the war, and it became a Superfund site back in the 1980s when they discovered that it was leaking TNT into the neighboring Ohio River. So they needed to clean that up, and they have done that now, and it's now a wildlife preserve. Now then, let's keep on going here. What do we got here? Okay, Eastern Regional Penitentiary, which is in real life the West Virginia Penitentiary, which is found in Moundsville, West Virginia, on the Ohio River. Keep on going here. Palace of the Winding Path, believe it or not, is based on a real-world location. I'm definitely going to mispronounce this. It's like Prabhupta's, and I can't remember the Golden Palace, something like that. It's a Hare Krishna site that's found northeast of Moundsville. So again, northeast of Eastern Regional Penitentiary, or the West Virginia Penitentiary in real life. Now, along with that, we have the Philippi Battlefield Cemetery, based on the real-world Philippi Battlefield, one of the first battlefields of the Civil War, found south and east of Grafton in real life. Keep on going here. What else we got? Okay, I already went over the Thunder Mountain Power Station and the Dolly Sods Wilderness. What else have we got? Okay, on the eastern side of Harper's Ferry, we have basically a set of heights. Why don't we just go over there? Why don't we take a look at it? And Harper's Ferry was an incredibly important city in the Civil War. At the very beginning, before the Civil War, it was home to one of the federal arsenals. So we're talking about back in the olden days, before we had defense contractors that produced all our weapons and stuff like that. We had the federal government producing its own weapons. Now, one of the places that happened was at the Harper's Ferry Arsenal in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. And so that was also the site of John Brown's raid. And again, it was also a location of the B&O Railroad, which passed on through West Virginia all the way out. And again, before the Civil War, we're talking Virginia, not West Virginia. But it passed through Virginia, through the Appalachian Mountains, all the way out to Ohio. And it was therefore incredibly important because it brought men and war material from the Ohio Valley out to the East Coast. Now, on the other side of the Potomac, from Harper's Ferry, there is Maryland Heights, which was another important site during the Civil War because it was a place where basically the Union could set up an observation post. They could also set up cannons. And it's from that point that they could bombard the city of Harper's Ferry if they needed to. But it was also a way that they could look out and see people, the Confederates coming. It was through this that they actually saw General Lee's forces moving up to Gettysburg. So just something to keep in mind there. Maryland Heights, this area is a real world site. Interesting. Is he out here for his former masters? That's really kind of sad if that's the case. Anyway, let's take a look at the map again. Okay, so why don't we look, yeah, Sugar Grove, also a real world site. In this case, we're talking Sugar Grove, NSA Sugar Grove Station, National Security Agency. So according to a New York Times article from 2005, this site intercepts all electronic communications going into the East Coast. So Pretty, pretty important site. Along with that, we have the National Radio Astronomy Research Center, and we have the National Isolated Radio Array. These are both based on real-world sites that are found at the Green Bank Telescope. This dish right here is actually something you could find out there. It's within the National Radio Quiet Area, something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it. It's something like that. Basically, you can't have, there's like a radio station in that entire area. Everything else, they've got actually detector trucks that go around looking for people that have things that are spitting off too much electromagnetic radiation, because they use these telescopes to peer deep into space, and as much interference as they can remove from the local environment, it means they get a clearer picture out there in space. So like, there's no broadcast television. If you're going to get television, it has to come from satellite and cable and stuff like that. And again, they clamp down hard on that stuff. Okay, so let's keep on looking here. What else we got? Oh yeah, down here in the Cranberry Bog, we have the Cranberry Glade, which is a real world location. It's home to a lot of exotic wildlife, including the sundew plants. These are real world carnivorous plants because they live in bog soil, which is really nutrient poor. So they have to have the ability to bring in bugs that they eat. So kind of creepy when you consider the size of these sundew plants that you get down here. Oh yeah, that's a good image. That's in the pit. That gentleman seems to have had a real rough time. His entire head has been twisted around. Okay. So yeah, these sundew plants, terrifying when you consider what's really going on with these things, where when they shoot out this sundew material, it's because they're trying to consume you. Okay. So getting back to it, Fort Defiance, once the Allegheny Asylum, is based on the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum found in Weston, West Virginia, another real-world location, and it does, in fact, look like Fort Defiance or the Allegheny Asylum. All right, what else do we have here? Spruce Knob, or Foundation as it's now known, another real-world location, the real-world highest point in West Virginia, and it's also actually not far from Seneca Rocks, another real-world location. And these things are also actually quite close to the Green Bank Telescope, which again is just up the Greenbrier River from both Watauga and Huntersville, another real-world location. And Huntersville actually sits like less than a mile down the road from the real-world Devil's Backbone. Oh, I'm getting that glitch. Where you can't fast travel, but it doesn't really know why, and it doesn't want to tell you. Like that. So I guess we're stuck in this tree for the moment. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay, Uncanny Caverns, based on the real-world Lost World Caverns, which again are right outside of real-world Lewisburg. It's the site of the supposed like Bat Boy, which was a story in like World Weekly News or something like that. If you have ever seen the Weird subreddit, it's their icon for that subreddit is the Bat Boy, the image of the Bat Boy. So if you're ever wondering, that is a thing. Okay, the White Spring Resort, again, Greenbrier Resort, and it also did have the real-world Greenbrier bunker called Project Greek Island. It was started up, my understanding of it is that it was started up as a nuclear bunker for the United States Congress that was constructed in the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, that was the impetus for its creation. And it was kept in secret until after the end of the Cold War, when it was finally, the information was leaked, and then it was declassified, and it's now a site you can visit, but my understanding is you can't take photos of it, which is too bad, because I'd really like to see in that place without having to actually go all the way up there just to see it. I do want to go to West Virginia someday, it's just can't afford it right at the moment. Now, the White Spring Station, also a real-world location in that the Greenbrier has a train station directly across the highway from it in real life. So this area is actually quite well recreated. Now, in-game, the White Spring only has 9 holes on its golf course, but looking at a map, I don't know, it almost looks to me like the Greenbrier in real life has more than even 18 holes, but I could just be miscounting them, and I didn't even really count them. I just kind of looked at it at a glance and it looked like 30 holes. I don't know. I'm probably way off on that. But they do have the cabins around the White Spring, and they do have the golf course, which has an inordinately large number of holes, at least it seems to me. I could be entirely wrong about that. Summersville Lake is a real location. And New Gad actually does make sense as a location. Can we fast travel? No, we cannot. So when they created Summersville Lake, it's a man-made lake, as like all the large lakes in West Virginia are man-made lakes. And when they created the Summersville Lake and they built the dam, it flooded this little tiny town called Gad. Gad was sitting there right in the river valley. It's now gone. Now, typically, what they do when they name the dams that they build, when they're making artificial lakes, they will name the lake after the closest town. In this case, Gad is literally the closest town. It's now underwater. They did not want to create the Gad Dam, so instead they created the Summersville Dam and the Summersville Lake. So that's what's going on there. That's why Gad is a site there. I did not list that in my video, but just so you know, it is actually a real-world site. It's also not really a site you can visit in real life without scuba gear, so... Helvetia, also a real site, probably the best recreated town in Appalachia. Of course, all the towns you can find in Appalachia in this are, as far as I can tell, real world sites. Let's see, what else? Okay, yeah, we've already said Camden Park. It's also called Camden Park. Along with that, there is the Hillfolk Hot Dogs, which in real life is called the Hillbilly Hot Dogs. And it is found in Lesage, West Virginia, right on the Ohio, just like this. Northeast of Huntington. What other sites? Yeah, the Landview Lighthouse in real life is the Summersville Lake Lighthouse, found not far from Summersville and near a campground on Summersville Lake. And while the real world version is built out of a wind turbine tower, so the one in game is made out of bricks. The one in real life, though, is a wind turbine tower section that fell off a truck. And it ended up getting damaged. They couldn't use it in the nearby wind farm. So instead they used it to build the Landview Lighthouse, or in real life the Summersville Lake Lighthouse. So again, that's another real world location you can find in game. I feel like there's a few other sites here. Definitely missing something. I've seen people refer to Pleasant Valley and specifically the Top of the World as being part of like snowshoe resorts, but I have not seen any evidence of that other than there's a single building at that resort that's called like the Top of the World Ski Rental Shop or something like that. It looks nothing like this structure. I think that's kind of a stretch, unless there's a dev out there that says, yes, this was what it's based on and I just missed that. I don't think there's any reason to consider that to be the origin of that. Let's see if there's anything else here to mention. Can I fast travel yet, or no? No. Still stuck in a tree. I feel like I've covered most of the sites. Just want to be 100% on that. Just keep taking a look around here real quick. Any of y'all have any questions while I look? Let's see. Yeah, I think that really covers just about everything that can be found. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. In fact, I think I've got a map here on my phone I can take a look at that should elucidate things. Again, if you all have any questions about any sites, let me know. There it is. Oh, that's the old one. Okay, yeah, two sites I didn't mention because they're not actually found in here. Up here to the northeast of Harper's Ferry is the, and really we're talking significantly further northeast, is Raven Rock, which you can find in Fallout 3, but you cannot find it in Fallout 76. But the truth of the matter is I think it's closer to Harper's Ferry than it is to DC, which is interesting and shows you just how close we are to the Capital Wasteland when we're here. Let's see, where is that? Yes, that's it. That's not everything, but that has... Oh, yeah. Okay, Lake Reynolds. Can I fast travel? No. Lake Reynolds is based on the real-world Lake Shawnee, which is the site. It's one of those sites where I can't tell if what they're claiming it to be is true or not. But if what they're saying is true, it's really creepy. So it seems that Lake Reynolds is okay. It's in modern day, it's an abandoned amusement park that, let's just say that the original site was an Indian burial ground. So then you had settlers, white settlers, move in the 1700s, and they built a farm on the territory. The family had like 8 kids. Okay, well, they got attacked by the natives, and they had 2 of their kids killed, and the 3rd kid was drug off and burned at the stake. So they went after the natives and killed some of the natives, and then they 100 years later, they opened up a, not 100, 150, 200 years later, they opened up an amusement park on the site, and like 6 kids die at the site, if I'm remembering that correctly, including like drownings and people getting run over and stuff like that. Creepy, creepy site. And I sincerely recommend that you go check out the Mercer County website on Lake Shawnee, because they use like amazingly disturbing imagery of the site. Like, it really creepy imagery. It's not disturbing, but like you look at this stuff and it's like, ugh. Let's see. Oh, another site I forgot to mention. The Giant Teapot. This is also a real world site. Now, in this case, we're talking about the northernmost tip of the northern panhandle of West Virginia, because weirdly enough, West Virginia has 2 panhandles. It's the only state that has 2 panhandles as far as I know. And it's in Chester, West Virginia, right on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio, because it's on the border, it's on the Ohio River. So it's also a real world site. Originally, it was like a root beer barrel back when it was advertising root beer, and then it turned into a giant teapot. Okay, yep, covered that. I think that's most everything. I've talked about in the Grafton video about how Grafton and Clarksburg are switched in location. Now, along with that, again, Morgantown is north of both of those cities, not here. Along with that, Monongah is actually northwest of Grafton. Northwest of Grafton. Not here in the mountains. It lies on the same West Fork River that Clarksburg sits on. So another weird situation there where this is definitely not where it's supposed to be. Talked about Helvetia already. Flatwoods and Sutton being flipped. The river not passing through Point Pleasant like it's supposed to. Again, the map of Appalachia is seriously jumbled in Fallout 76 compared to any other area that we visited in any other Fallout game. Like Fallout 3, again, the general layout of the Capital Wasteland is pretty much the same. Hey, Daniel Wolfgang, good to see you. Hope your Friday's going well. Mine has been all right. But yeah, again, seriously jumbled. So I think what I'm going to do now is open it up for like 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. If anybody has a question, get it in. Otherwise, I'm going to cut things off here, and I'm going to go back to work on this video, get it finished up for my patrons here in the next, hopefully, I got to record the audio, and then I got to put the thing together. So I'm not going to say it's going to be done before tomorrow afternoon, but I'll get it out to my patrons, hopefully tomorrow afternoon, if not by Sunday. And then everybody else, you'll be able to see it Monday morning on YouTube. So any questions anybody has? Playing games and pestering your cat is a good way to spend a Friday, I'll say that. Any good places to camp in the Cranberry Bog? I mean, the Cranberry Bog is generally quite dangerous. I would say, I can tell you places to avoid in general, which I would say avoid the fire stations, because those fire bases all are overrun with the Scorched. Also avoid the Bog Town, because you have an enormous amount of super mutants and a super mutant behemoth here. Avoid the Quarry X3, because there is generally a Mirelurk Queen down in there. But this area, well, yeah, there's a fissure up there. Your best bet is probably somewhere down here. South of Watoga, not down to the south and east. Hey, Prince Julius, good to see you. I'm glad you like the lore videos. Any other questions anyone else has? Okay, well then I'm going to get back to work, and I will have the video out to all of y'all by Monday. And again, my patrons will have it ad-free available to stream to them coming by Sunday at the latest. So have a good night, y'all, and have a good weekend. I'll see you next time.